We are back with the Buffalonian podcast. I'm Joe Kelly, and as always, I'm joined by Dom Loss and Mike Marino. It's tough. This is betting on the Bills, the season finale. Okay, like this is it. We're done after this. Like after the game yesterday, it's absolutely unreal to me to be in this situation. To even play that game in the situation that happened during that game is beyond me. So I'm getting a little choked up. No, not really. But no, we're here with Dom Loss and Mike Marino as usual, fellas. Really tough end of the season. You thought 13 seconds was bad. Getting obliterated at home is pretty much up there. Dominated is up there. So, just general thoughts here. I mean, this is more of an emergency press conference than a full on episode. But what are you guys thinking?
Okay, yeah. I guess I'll start this time. We'll change it up a bit. I think going in, there was, a lot of nervous, like, this is going to be the toughest team we faced pretty much all year. It's playoff football, so no matter how good you do in the regular season, it doesn't matter. And then, it just seemed like from the opening kickoff, we just didn't have it. Like they were just in control the entire game. And, we just got outmatched. Like they were more physical than us. They executed their game plan better than us. And they showed why that they were the Super Bowl team last year. And, I think just when it comes down to it, I know Milano said they just didn't have energy. They just didn't have any juice going, and they didn't get those plays where you can get momentum to flip. And I think this shows that, at the end of the day, like the Bills is just, I don't know what it is. It's like we always seem to have these discussions every year. Like what could we have done that's a little bit different? What do we need to do to get over the hump? And, it's like we always come short. Diggs, he's saying the exact same thing. A lot of players saying the same thing. What changes can be made? Like, do we make a move at one of the coordinators? Do we, completely revamp the offensive line? Maybe get rid of a big name player to kind of change things up here. Like, what do we need to do to finally get over the hump? Because I would say at this point, Allen, we talked about at the beginning of the year how he's like on that level of Mahomes and arguably the best quarterback in the league. Now I think he's in that second tier below Mahomes, and I think Burrow's played himself above him. And, it's just a shame because we had such a good year, but, a lot of things didn't go our way with some injuries and, obviously like just in Western New York in general, where, you want to have it end with a Super Bowl parade, but it doesn't happen like that. And it just seems like every year we end in heartbreak. And I mean, they got to figure something out because we can't keep this up. Like it's unfortunate that with 3 backup offensive linemen and another one hurt, we couldn't get any pressure on Burrow. And then you have Dawkins get beat clean on a 3-man rush. And
Yeah.
Allen was just running for his life out there sometimes. This just proved that our biggest offseason need is the trenches. Both offense and defensive line just need revamping.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a game that they were never in. Like from the first play from scrimmage, you just felt like, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that from a Sean McDermott team of just like from the jump they had. I mean, you said of Milano they lacked energy, but I mean they were just never felt like there was a chance for them to come back. I mean, this is only the first. I mean, obviously they got dominated by Indianapolis last year, but like this is the first playoff loss where they just. I mean, listen, they lost by 2 touchdowns to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, but there was they were up 9-0. They had opportunities that they kicked stupid field goals on 4th and short when they should have won for it. Like that, at least that game they got destroyed. I mean, they lost by multiple scores and they deserved to get blown. They got blown out, but at least that you could probably swing where we have this game. It's like people are complaining about what the 4th and 10 at the Bengals 41 or the 4th and 2 at their own 20 down 2 scores. Like it just the game was never. It never felt like after. I mean, you can't start a game worse than the Bills did. To be honest with you, I mean, they gave a touchdown,
not at all.
3-and-out, touchdown, 3-and-out. Like the first 4 drives of the game, if you were scripting a perfect start for your team, is that other than if you want, I mean, instead of 3-and-outs, you want turnovers. But this offseason, it just I don't know. It's weird because in 19, and they get to the playoffs in 17, but that was kind of fool's gold. I think everyone knew that. 19, it was like, all right, we're a young team. Like they just kind of got overwhelmed. I mean, it happens. It's a good experience. 20, it was like, all right, we're building something, but we're a couple pieces away. We're not on the Chiefs level. 21, it was like, honestly, we were good enough to win the Super Bowl, and we just failed to execute with 30 seconds. And this year, I think the most disappointing part is it's a step back from last year in the fact of I don't feel like they're a Von Miller away from winning the Super Bowl. Like I feel like there's multiple teams that are ahead of them that I don't know the way that they pass those teams at this point. I know that's like sounds super negative, but like the Chiefs are still going to be there. The Bengals. I mean, next year, what I read were like Chase, Higgins, Boyd, and Burrow are still making a combined $32 million. Like that's how much Josh Allen's making and then some. So like, I don't really see that team how they're going to be able to pass that team. And then, I mean, you look at the NFC. I think both those teams that are playing next weekend are significantly better right now than the Bills. So, I mean, the two main questions I have with proper moment is like, what are they going to do to improve, or like what are they? I mean, as Mike said, to get over the hump, and two, like, what the hell happened to the team? What the hell happened at halftime against Green Bay? Like that team just never came back. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they go in the bye beating the Chiefs, and they play a really good first half against Green Bay, and then I mean, it just the vibes were off after that. Like they played a bad second half, won, and then I mean we all saw the rest of the season. Like yeah, they were on an 8-game winning streak, but I mean this has to be like one of the most oddest 14-win football teams I've ever seen. I know it's
Yeah.
my team, but like they lost 3 games by 8 points, and then they just get worked. I just think they
Yeah.
ran out of gas, which isn't an excuse, but I mean it's like there's a reason for it because of all the adversity they had to deal with, but at the same time, it's like they were just never in this game.
No, and I completely agree with that from the start. They just like you said, their heads weren't in the game. Milano said it. You see Diggs on the sideline throwing his arms up at Josh. I mean, it was a tough scene all around because like that's our team. Those are guys we've learned to love on this team. Like I don't know. It's just you're absolutely right, Dom, in the fact that we were a dominant team through the bye week in the first half of that Green Bay game, right? Like we came out. I saw plays from that Rams game from the first game of the season. Josh stiff arming guys, I mean, all this stuff, like huge throws. That seemed to disappear, and things were just out of sorts for the rest of the season. And we almost lost to the Browns in Detroit. You know what I mean? Like that right
We almost
there.
lost to the I mean, okay, we didn't almost, but, like, we were losing at halftime to the Bears.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah.
like, I just after the half, it's like, when was the last time the Bills played a full 60 minutes? I know that it's a half against Green Bay, but, I mean, they didn't. I mean, they never did.
I mean, it's tough to look at because our record was 13-3, right? Because we didn't, with the one game got canceled. It's it's interesting, or was it 14-3?
No, it was well, technically, I mean, with the Miami one. What's also frustrating about that is it's not like that was, like, fluky, I don't think. Like,
No,
it's not like a 19 when they played, like, a really easy schedule and went 10-6. Like, they played a pretty difficult schedule this year, so it wasn't, like,
no,
100% fluky that they went 14-3, but at the same time, it never felt that they were a 14-3 team just from, like, the vibes and how they were playing, and at the end of the day, when you get down to the level of, like, you have to beat Cincinnati, Kansas City, and one of those top teams in the NFC, like, it just seemed I mean, hindsight's 2020, but looking back at it, like, we probably should have saw this coming, to be honest with you.
yeah. Honestly, I talk about domination. That's what we saw on Sunday. Um, you go in with high hopes and see something like that. It's just we were outcoached, outplayed, everything. Like it was a sight. Let me tell you, you could hear a pin drop probably anywhere, any bar watching the game anywhere. Like it was not what you were expecting from a team which was a Super Bowl favorite. Um, I'm more or less at a loss for words. I really don't have a lot to say. I do have stuff to say, but I just sitting there with my jaw dropped as this game ended. Like that's truly what was happening. Like it was embarrassing almost. You know what I mean? Like just the manner of going into this, Joe Mixon running his mouth as he always does, but hearing them say get the refunds for Atlanta, all that stuff, like it's like, that's tough. But then again, they were hungry for the win and they got it. So
Yeah, I mean, this is the team that the Bengals, they started the year a little slow, and we were talking about the Super Bowl hump or slump, sorry. And then end of the day, they got hot at the right time, and it was kind of sad to hear at the end of the game them shouting "Who Day" in Ralph Wilson Stadium because we had never lost a home playoff game in the McDermott era, and we just decided not to show up this game. And I completely agree with what Dom was saying before, and that Green Bay game was like a turning point for some reason. Like we saw in 2020, the Arizona game. Like from that point on, when we lost that game, we were we were rolling. In 2021, when we lost to the Bucks, but we were coming back and went to overtime. From that point on, our momentum was rolling. This year, it's like it was the complete opposite. The Green Bay game, we were rolling before, and then we lost. Halftime, we just didn't show up, and throughout the year, like we did enough to win, but we never looked like an elite team that's going to win the Super Bowl.
yeah, and I think that's the toughest thing about it is you look back, like you said, we were down big in Tampa. We were coming back in Tampa, and then that carried all the way through to that Chiefs game where we were watching two firecracker offenses just going off on each other, right? You're right in the sense that this year, like we didn't have that kind of a game. It was always like struggles to win, not struggles to win necessarily, but it wasn't like a blowout. Like we had to put our all into every game. There was no coasting. You know what I mean? Like we were other teams were in the game with us for 99% of it. Like just even that Miami game, Dom, I know you and I were both there. You know what I mean? Like just in different areas. It's just watching that come down to the final drive where, you know what I mean? Like they were just they let teams stay in it for the whole game pretty much. That's what I would say.
It's like what's frustrating is that they had spurts of it down the stretch. Like the fourth quarter against the Bears. I know it's the Bears, but they had a stretch. New England second half. I mean, Miami the first 20 minutes of the game. Like they were up 17-0. You thought, okay, this is it now. But it was just pretty consistent of like the offense was just far too inconsistent outside of Josh being Josh and Diggs and the turnovers. And then the defense, even the defense, like, I mean, against the better offenses in the league, it was just not the best performances. I mean, late in the season against Miami, it was like the offense was really good and the defense wasn't that great. And then, I mean, this is the third straight postseason game where they've been outcoached heavily, and the suspected top defense in the NFL, or one of them, just lays a complete egg. I mean, a complete egg. And you could even look back at it from the second half of that Houston playoff game. They're up 16-0, top-ranked defense. They crapped the egg in the second half and blew that game as well. So I don't know where it's hard because you don't know where they're going to go from here.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting offseason to say the least. Like with us chatting about it, we're going to have to go back into the hypothetical talk, if you will, for the Bills, and I think we really need to diagnose where things really are different this year. I mean, people are blaming this. They're saying Josh Allen's the next Dak Prescott. I see that all over Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, like all over social media. I think it's too early to jump to that conclusion, that much of a conclusion. He's outperformed Dak. He literally broke Dan Marino's record for passing touchdowns in general in his first 5 years. He's got the most of a quarterback of all time now in his first 5 seasons. And it's tough because you have a player of that caliber, right? We had Emmanuel Sanders and Diggs last year, solid 2 wide receivers, great talents, right? Where Gabe was at the end of last season, stepped into that role with 4 touchdowns in that Kansas City divisional game, right? We're like, oh, this is the guy. This is our guy. Clutch Davis is only around in the playoffs, pretty much. That's what we've seen. I mean, Butterfinger Davis is for the rest of the season. There are a couple things you can diagnose here, like, our first year without Dable, our first year, like running with Dorsey, it's his first year as an OC. Like, it's just, there are things definitely to point out. You can point fingers anywhere. I think the Bills just need.
What's frustrating is this though, is that you look at what they did this previous offseason, and there's not a lot where like you could critique and say that they were flawed, like they were super flawed in some cases. Like, yes, we had a problem with our interior offensive line. They re-signed Ryan Bates. They signed Roger Stafford, who was a Pro Bowler. I mean, that whiffed. I mean, they drafted a first-round corner, but then they didn't play the first-round corner. I mean, like, if you look down the line, they took some gambles, and they ended up whiffing on a lot of stuff. But, like, at the same time, could we have all predicted that? I think the only thing that we were like, I don't know about this was, we said about weaknesses of the roster was, like, is the offensive line really all that rebuilt? And, is Diggs and Davis enough on the outside, or do we need another one? And it turns out both those were correct because, I mean, we're looking at like now the third straight offseason of like the offensive line just not good enough. Like they ran the ball, I think, like 14 times to the running backs and they got 1 first down. I mean, look what Cincinnati was doing. Cincinnati was running like 6 yards a pop against us. They were pushing every pile. And the Bills, I mean, at the one drive was pushing the pile a lot, but at the end of the day, like, it was pathetic, especially the near fumble from Josh to Mike Hilton is just terrible on Spencer Brown for not picking up the blitzer who was coming 20 yards off the line of scrimmage. Like, how did he? And they slid the protection that way, so there was no reason why he should whiff on the block. Gets his QB killed. So why would Josh expect like Mike Hilton to be there? Like, yeah,
The fact,
like he could have got the ball out quicker, but at the same time, like no one in front of him was putting any danger, so why would he expect himself to be in danger?
right? Yeah, I mean, the fact that our starting offensive line, played against compared to the Bengals having 3 backups playing on their offensive line, they performed better than ours. I mean, I think that shows a huge flaw in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing. I mean,
I think another thing that kind of stood out to me this year was like we saw in the past few years, like Cole Beasley was kind of that reliable over the middle guy, third down, he'll get those extra yards. And this season, obviously we brought back Cole Beasley, but he really wasn't the same. And just over the course of the year, we never had that guy. Like Crowder got hurt early, so we couldn't really see what he could do in a full season. McKenzie kind of proved to be more of a gadget type player. Like he wasn't consistent enough to be a full-time slot receiver. And Shakir, we never really saw much of him, and he's a rookie. Gabe Davis, we were saying before, he's just not consistent enough in the regular season. And beginning of the year, all we saw was Allen to Diggs, like first 8-9 games of the year, and then last half of the season, it was like they just decided to stop throwing to him, like stop making plays for him. And then, Knox, we pay him top 5 tight end money, and we don't even incorporate him in the offensive scheme. So I don't know, like, if Dorsey, like, decided to change the plays, try to get more people involved, and it just didn't work. But, like, it's just, like, unless Allen just didn't have trust in some of his receivers, like, I don't know, like, why it took that much of a hit. Because, like, really, our receiving core is not that much different from the year before. Like, we lost Sanders, but we expected Davis to jump up. We lose Beasley, but we expect McKenzie to jump up and draft Shakir. And it's just neither of them. Like, Davis had a good year, but he didn't prove to me that he can be a full-time number 2. I think he's more of a number 3 deep threat playmaking. Like, he's not a consistent number 2 for me. I think they need someone else.
No,
and then they obviously definitely need a slot guy.
No, I think that's where you get in trouble, like looking at like the volume of like how he had like 800 yards and I don't know 8 touchdowns or whatever it is. But like at the end of the day, like that was because he had 100 targets. Like he wasn't efficient. Having 800 yards on 100 targets is not very efficient. And it just comes down to the fact of the Bills have constantly not spent capital on the offensive side of the football as much as they have defensively. Like they incorporate so much stuff into the defense every year. And I think this is finally like the first year where it really bit them offensively. Like, I mean, you put up 10 points in a playoff game. Like, at the end of the day, like, I think this is for this to be a successful offseason, first off, they had to get everyone in line to, like, what the heck's going on? Because this is, like, the first year where, like, the front office and the coaching staff, and maybe even inside the coaching staff, just did not seem to be on the same page. Like, you trade for Naheem Hines, but he had like 14 touches in 11 games or some weird number. You say that, oh, we want James Cook to be a pass catcher, but then he catches 20 passes. Like, we're paying Dawson Knox, but we're not going to feature him. You know, we draft Khalil Shakur, but we're not going to use him. But then when we do use him, I know he dropped the 50-yard pass. That was a real tough one to watch, but I actually thought he played pretty well. I mean, he played pretty well yesterday, and he was already. I know he dropped the ball, but like, I think when if opportunities, he would have been good. I mean, you draft a first-round corner, and you don't use him. Like, look what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs had all these young dudes defensively, and we're like, screw it. Like, there's gonna be a play where we give just a 50-yard touchdown because two rookies don't know what the heck they're doing. But when it comes to playoff time, they're gonna know how to defend that route. The Bills didn't do that. They were stubborn. And it's time for the Bills to change their ways. Like, they got to get the front office and coaching staff together, because like Dorsey's like all about this like vertical throwing, but then McDermott and Frazier are like, oh, bend don't break. We're not going to blitz you to death. Like, they're conservative, but then Dorsey's aggressive. Like, it's just not a match. The front office gets the people that Dorsey might want, but then Dorsey doesn't use them. Like, I'm not saying it's all Ken Dorsey's fault, but at the end of the day, you know, we spend all these assets defensively, but we don't spend any offensive. Like, it's time for the Bills to understand, get everyone on the same page, and then invest in the offense. Like, they need to go out, improve the offensive line. They need to go out and spend their first-round pick, I think, on a wide receiver, because I think they need another dude. Like, they need to go out and spend actual stuff on the offense.
I mean, look what the Chiefs did. Like, when Mahomes was in the Super Bowl against Tampa, he was getting no time to throw the ball, anything. He's getting chased around the entire game. What did they do? That offseason, they invested in the offensive line. They bring in Joe Tooney. They bring in Orlando Brown. Like, I'm not saying the Bills got to make these huge moves like that. Maybe I think they should, like maybe one.
Yeah.
But, you know, not go nuts like that. But they got to do something, because I'm sorry, but like Spencer Brown ain't cutting it at right tackle.
No.
Saffold he's going to retire.
Do you
Mitch
think
Morris
it's because
doesn't
we
have
had a
that
change
much.
of the offensive line coach as well? Personnel there?
No,
because he's been here before, I think, too.
The offensive
like,
line was bad all year.
Yeah,
I mean, it was bad before this.
Bates,
Yeah,
I don't know, wasn't the best either. Like, I don't know. They just, for years, it seems like our offensive line hasn't been that great. Like, last time, I feel like we had a solid offensive lineman was like
Eric Wood.
As weird as it is to say, like Richie Incognito.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know,
Eric Wood, Cordy Glenn, one of the more underrated Bills of all time. Like, if he could have stayed healthy, like, that was a franchise left tackle. No,
if we had Kyle Orton's offensive line for the Bills now, we would be in decent shape. You know, or Tyrod Taylor's. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's really, it's just like, you can't expect Josh Allen to get sacked 7 times in that Miami game and still, like, every game pull out a win. Even though I know Joe Burrow did the same thing with the Titans last year, was sacked 9 times, still beat them, whatever. Like, it's still, like, you cannot expect a productive offense to come out of that. Like, you need to protect the quarterback. He can't be running around all over the place. We knew the offensive line was a problem, and yet we're still trying to make Bobby Hart work somehow in the offseason. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
all right, Bobby Hart's actually, like, that was actually, like, they're actually pretty good when they brought the 6th offensive lineman in. But I get what you're saying. But
it's invest.
It's frustrating to me from the fact of the Chiefs in 21 and after 2020 was like the offensive line's problem. Went out, got Orlando Brown. They signed, as Mike said. Now, granted, do the Bills
and Creed Humphrey, drafting Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, the Bills don't need to go like all out like that. I think that would be that like, I mean, they don't have the cap space, or I wouldn't trade a first round pick for that. But like, you have a good left tackle, and that's about it. Like, that's my mindset. My mindset is you have to find a way to upgrade the 4 positions. Now, if you're gonna say Mitch Morris is gonna stay, fine. I think he needs to take a cap pay cut, because I don't think he's particularly great this year. I know.
Also, he's got 6 concussions in his career. He might not be around.
There's definitely concerned with that. Like, they got to figure that out. And then Bates is like a third guard to me. So, like, you got to figure out right tackle, and you got to find 2 other guards. And, like, how do you do that? Like, you got to draft. Like, it comes down to the fact of the Bills drafting Boogie Basham over Creed Humphrey was just really bad. I mean, I don't know what the Bills for the past 3 years have known the offensive line has been a problem, and they have just put tape and glue and hope that, like, it's stuck together. Like, they got to go out and pay someone to fix it. They got to pay out and get a contractor to plug the hole. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's been a problem. Like you look at the Chiefs, every offseason, like they've fixed a major problem. Like 2020, honestly, offensive line was a problem. They fixed it in that next offseason. Tyreek Hill wants a bunch of money. We can't really pay him. They trade him for assets, and then all of a sudden those assets have helped them fix defensively. Now they have cap flexibility with Holmes. I'm not saying trade Diggs. Okay, I don't want that to be like misconstrued or anything, but it comes down to the fact of like you're gonna have to. I think what the Bills need to do, and this is gonna be hard to say, but the Bills need to retool. Like I don't think the Bills can be like, oh, we're gonna re-sign Trayvon Edmonds, we're gonna re-sign Jordan Poyer because we're gonna restructure all these dudes' deals, and we're just gonna be like the New Orleans Saints of a huge cap bill. Like, no, I think as much as this is like a hard conversation to have, like this is the most talent you're gonna have with Allen on his rookie deal, and now going forward on his mega deal, you had to figure out a way to get talent. And the best way to figure out to get talent is to develop people, and they haven't been doing a good job of that, but they need to draft better and develop people. And to do that, they need to give away assets to get assets, or they need to let Jordan Poyer walk or some other people walk so they can get compensation picks. Like that's what they have to start doing.
I 100% agree.
But
no, you got to have these tough conversations. It's absolutely true. Even 24 hours after this game ended, we're already talking about it. But it's absolutely, I'm right there with you because you can't skip out on the offense anymore, right? Our defense is solid. I mean, they didn't get any pressure on Burrow, but then again, Von Miller, whatnot, was not there. I don't think it really would have made that much of a difference. But there was talk about using Benford maybe as a safety. You know what I mean? Like developing him as a safety. Try and do that. Use what you have. You know what I mean? Like at this point, if Poyer's not coming back, Hyde's going to stick around. Throw Benford back there with him. That would be, you know what I mean? Figure that out like that. Spend on the offensive line. Draft on the offensive line. Get another wide receiver. Just do what you need to do because defensive-minded head coach, right? Sean McDermott. He's great. The defense has been and will stay solid, right? Like that's never been in question. Now the offense, like you said, Dom, you're seeing the trade-off you have when you're, you know what I mean? You're drafting for the defense, adding tools to the defense, and running with the offense you've had for the past couple of years. They tried to bring Beasley back, which I thought was a decent move, but he was retired for about 6 months at that point. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like he was going to be prime Cole Beasley again for the rest of the season. So I think you give up what you give up. Like Dom said, retool. That's what you got to think about here. That's the key word because Josh Allen is taking a big chunk of the money now where you need to work around that and you need to use what you have on the team like Benford and develop him into that safety position, which we talked about last year being a possibility, you know, and it stinks to say that Jordan Poyer and Tremaine might have played their last games in a Bills jersey. It really does because they've been two great players. Tremaine, especially this year, really stepped up for me. But I don't know. It is a realistic conversation. I mean, even Singletary coming up here. Like, what are your thoughts on him? I mean, I feel like he's had a good season.
He's probably gone. I mean,
yeah,
they'd probably just. I don't even know.
They might use Hines and
mid-round. They have Hines and Cook, like Duke Johnson's on the practice squad. But like I do think like they need to invest in draft. Higher on draft, like we can't keep taking defensive linemen here. Like we've been so steady on taking defensive players at the top of the draft, and it's like, you know, this year we take Elam, 21 we take Rousseau, 20 was Epinesa, 19 is Oliver. You know, 18 we got Josh and Tremaine, 17 is Trey, 16 Shaq. You know, like
you're right. It has been all defense pretty much.
It's been pretty much defense these last drafts. Like even 15, Ronald Darby. It's been like 14 was Sammy Watkins. That's last time, and we trade up for him. And I don't know. I think we need to invest. Like this pick needs to either be a playmaker or a lineman, like offensive lineman, like defensive lineman. If we need to attack that, I think it's more free agent wise.
Exactly.
I think we have enough young guys that are developing. We need guys that can actually play at that point. Offensive line, I think we need more youth to it. Get someone a top prospect who can be a starter for long term. Because I mean, Dawkins is what 28 now, 29. So like he should be like in his prime right now, towards next 3 years here, 3-4 years. Other than that, like our offensive line, there's no one that's really going to be here long term. So I think we need to invest in someone long term, and that's through the draft.
Well, like
Like our highest drafted lineman was Cody Ford. So
yeah, because Dawkins was like, yeah, I mean, like if you look at next year, they have Allen making $39 million, Diggs at 20, Vaughn at 18. So like I feel like all three of those contracts are worth it. We'll see what Vaughn. I think he said he's going to come back early August, whatever. Then you get to Trey making $16 million, and I love Trey, but like this year he wasn't worth his contract, and that's partly because of injury, but partly because he wasn't that great in the back half of the year. So this is a big year for him because like he's making $16 million. Like, is that $16 million well spent? I know that's a hard conversation to make, but like I don't know what the situation would be like if they dead capped it. They probably won't cut. I'm not gonna say they're gonna cut him, but like at the same time, like he's not worth $16 million right now, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, in the back half of the season especially.
Yeah, Dion making like 15, that's fine. That's like standard left tackle money, Pro Bowl left tackle money, that's fine. Milano making 13. And I'm going to say this, like Milano's a great player, all pro, definitely worth the money, but do you want to invest in an off-ball linebacker for $13 million? That's another thing where it's like, honestly, like, would you rather have him or Tremaine? And it's like, honest to God, I probably would want to have my middle linebacker over an off-ball linebacker. Now, I'm not saying they're both insanely valuable, but like at the same time, like
just the way Frazier runs a defense,
which one would be easier to replace? And like Milano's gonna be difficult to replace no matter, but that's the same point. Mitch Morse is making $11.3 million, and we could all say like I like Mitch Morse, but like that cap hit's too high for me. Like he for him to, I know he's a Pro Bowler this year. This is like the Roger Stafford Pro Bowl, really overrated. He was like the 20th best center in the league this year, and the 20th best center in the league does not make $11 million. At Oliver making $10 million, like. This is a disappointing year. Like I know he had like some kind of pec injury, but like he was terrible down the stretch, and I think it might be because of the injury, but like I feel bad for that because like the guy that we saw against Cleveland and Detroit was there for 2 games. You know, he sprains his ankle against the Rams week 1, has this kind of injury. Like it's just really disappointing at this point. Like after next year, he's a free agent, and like I saw like on cap whatever that he's supposed to get like 4x40 or whatever. Like I'm not paying at Oliver like multiple years at double digits $1 million. Like I don't think he's worth it right now. Like that's another guy, and then you're gonna have Knox's contract and all that. Like after that, it kind of decreases down. Daquan's making 8.5, but Daquan's worth that. Like he's actually had a really good year this year. I mean they missed him, but again, like I think that's the problem. Was like you have multiple guys that are making huge cap hits that, as much as they're fan favorites and you love them, like some of them are positions where you need to realize that aren't as valuable in the state of the NFL, and some dudes just haven't performed because of injuries, which is unfortunate, but I mean it's the world we live in.
Yeah, it's I think emotions are riding high right now. I think that's going to fizzle out in a little bit, and then more people will be talking about what we're talking about because a lot of people are just kind of letting it sit for a little bit. But it's definitely conversations that need to be had. And like you said, Dom, these coaches, front office, staff, they need to get on the same page because it's pretty evident that they're not, because every third and 4, Dorsey's throwing 50 yards down the field. You know what I mean? Like it's
well,
just
like they talked all offseason about how yards after catch, yak was going to be so important, but they were like bottom 10 again, yak.
Yeah, they were only ahead of like 6-7 teams. Like that's it.
Like this is why, like with the 27th pick, I feel like they just have to like take Smith-Jigba from Ohio State or take Addison from USC. Like take the best route runner. Like you need a good route runner. If you get because Gabe Davis, as Mike says, is a vertical threat. Gabe Davis is not a great route runner. Like Diggs is a good route runner. Davis is really not. That's not his forte.
Davis just jets downfield. That's
like
really
get another guy that's a good route runner, like Shakir. Like Shakir's a good route runner. We'll see how he develops. But like get another dude that's just like uber talented, and you got to find a way. Both lines need some tweaking. I don't know if it's just like the D line just has to. You got to be like, we just weren't healthy. We're gonna get Vaughn back. We're gonna get Daquan back. We'll add a piece or two just for depth purposes, but we're gonna roll off our guys and hope that they develop. I think maybe they have to just do that. And then offensively, though, I don't know what to tell you. They got to go all in.
No, they do have to go all out, especially because the window with the talent, like you mentioned, is closing because people's contracts are going to be up and whatnot. Like Josh is, like you said, going into his big boy deal, and it's going to be interesting to see how they move on from here. But the talent with this team before you need to really, really retool the defense too is we're getting to that window in the next couple of years where it's going to be interesting. People are going to want their money, and can we pay them? That's the question. So would love if we had the Sabres cap space right now for the Bills, had that much money left, but
Well,
unfortunately
also, it's like
is the NFL cap going up at all? Do we know either?
a little bit. They're
Yeah,
like
tiny
red.
bit.
I think they might be in the negative. They might already be in the red. They might be just out of it though. I think the Bills. I don't know. Somewhere. It's always weird. Like at the end of the day, like they recalculated before, but they're at the cap right now, and it's just, I don't know. It's one of those situations where that just haven't. They've done a good job, in my opinion, of drafting like really solid players, like solid dudes. But at the end of the day, like
Not
if you
elite.
look at the Bills roster, like who are their like blue chip young dudes like under 25? That's not. I mean, Josh is 26. Like they don't really have any. And I think that's like the scary part for me is like every year we get to the end of the year and it's like we talk about like these all pro teams, or we talk about like I'm not saying we should be obsessed with it, but at the end of the day, it's like, we talk about who's a Hall of Famer on this team. And it's like, honestly, the Bills only have a couple. Like they're very top heavy, and then they have a bunch of average players. Like I think they need to. I don't know. They need to get some more. They need to get more people in the middle of the roster that are good, that are like above average at their position, that are actually borderline elite at their position. They don't have enough of those guys, in my opinion.
No, I would 100% agree with you. It's just, it's tough because the way that game went is everything we're saying right now. You could literally watch that game again and just pinpoint exactly where it needs to go.
Well, there's not one. The problem is there's not one solution. Like last year, it was pretty obvious. Like, hey, like we need a finisher. This one, it's like, yeah, we might get our finisher back, but he's gonna be 34.
And post ACL injury,
both lines get manhandled. You're losing other spots that aren't the line of key pieces, and Josh never looked the same because of the weapons scheme. I don't know. I think also part of the turning point might be after the Packers game, Josh gets injured. Like I guess we'll never know how severely injured he was. I guess in an alternate universe, they let him rest a month, and maybe things could have turned out better. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I have to somewhat believe. I guess this is me being optimistic. I have to somewhat believe that his elbow compromised him so much that that he wasn't comfortable throwing really short, quick passes, like getting the ball out really quick because it was hurting his elbow, and that's the reason why they were just throwing deep bombs. Like, I guess that's like, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
a man can dream, man. A man can dream.
A man can dream, but I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an announcement for a UCL surgery. I'm going to be honest with you, because that happened to someone.
They wouldn't have jeopardized them that bad.
No,
I think
but that happened to. I forget. There was a baseball player that happened to where he played the rest of the season. It was a minor UCL, like partial tear. Like,
you know who it was? It was Bryce Harper.
On the Phillies, right?
Bryce Harper tore his UCL, but then
partially.
But like that was a little different because he stopped. He just. I mean, baseball's a little. Different because
right. But I wouldn't be surprised.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if he really if he could do it without pain certain ways, so they ran with it because they knew they can't win with Case Keenum. That's pretty evident. I mean. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that he was getting it either an exploratory done for the area.
That might be what I would agree with that. I thought you meant like he's going to be out like 9 months.
No. Like what they did with Von Miller just to see if something's wrong.
No,
you know what I
think
mean?
if that was a possibility, I think they would have sat him for a month.
Yeah, because it's truthfully like, we say after the second half of the Packers game, but truthfully, that Jets game where he lost after that elbow got tweaked, that it was even bigger difference. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't throwing quick slants. Screen passes weren't the same anymore after that. This is one of the first screen passes was in this game to Beasley. Like that was one of the better ones I had seen from him in a while. So he said throwing sidearm bugged him for a while. You see him in practice doing all these weird stretches with the trainer and stuff like that. So I think it might have been an ongoing issue. So maybe they'll do a little bit of an exploratory thing with it just to see if something is off and try and fix it. So I don't think 9 months his UTL is completely gone. Maybe there's a partial tear that they just stitch up real fast. You know what I mean? And let him heal. So I don't think he's going to miss any of the next season with it, but I think they're going to definitely explore it a little bit, but I don't know. Shall be interesting, fellas. I mean, well, yeah. At least it's stress-free football for the next 2 weeks, right?
Well, it's also kind of like, I don't know, like the rest of. I always say this, like once the Bills get eliminated, The rest of the NFL season just kind of blows. Like it's not as fun to watch. Like I
No.
barely watched the night game. I watched the last drive.
Oh,
of
I didn't watch it at all.
Zeke,
I didn't turn it on.
Zeke snapping, but like
Well, I don't know what they were expecting on that. I guess they weren't expecting any pass rush, but it's just ridiculous with the Niners defense.
I don't even know like at this point like what team am I supposed to be rooting for?
I mean, my aunt lives in San Francisco, so I'm going Niners.
I mean, like,
but
do I want either the AFC teams to win?
no.
I mean,
I'm just gonna root for the NFC.
probably
Yeah.
not.
I don't want Mahomes or Burrow winning a Super Bowl. I know that sounds petty of me.
The Eagles
but
fan base is kind of crazy, but like I kind of like them. Like I don't want.
I would love Brock Purdy to win.
I don't want Brock Purdy to win because I think that's just going to be a really annoying like storyline. I'm not a big Shanahan fan, but like
They'll make a movie about it and call it Mr. Irrelevant.
yeah, they would.
Come on,
they made
like,
a
it's
movie about Kurt Warner. So,
exactly. Yeah, they'd make a movie about it and call it Mr. Irrelevant. And I don't know. I would like.
Start pitching your idea to Disney right now.
Yeah, pitch it to Disney. They'll make a cartoon version of it for him. So I don't know. It's just it really does suck to watch football from here on out.
Before we end, I do have to say, so head coach, 2 offensive coordinators, a couple assistants. Do you think anyone goes?
I think they roll with it. I'm going to be honest with you. As much as I think Dorsey struggled this season, he also had highs and lows. You know what I mean? Like he had the first part of the season, before the bye week, he was cooking. But then I think he faltered a little bit. So I think also you got to let him grow into the position a little bit, like any player. You got to let him develop. So I think they give him at least one more season. Dorsey.
I feel like if anyone on the offensive side gets fired, it'd be like Joe Brady.
Yeah, I feel like the quarterback coach.
And if a big name gets fired, it's Leslie Frazier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, I mean, if I was a betting man, I would probably bet they don't do anything. But to me, I do think there has to be. I'm sorry, but like this is gonna be like sound harsh, but like someone's head's got to come for this game. Like you can't. I mean,
no.
There's no oh, let's run it back after we lost. Like I think that's a really hard thing to do. I think you do need a system change. And like I've been the biggest McDermott supporter, so I'm not saying he should be fired because I think that's dumb. I do think it's concerning though that he's been outcoached in the last 3 playoff seasons by a considerable margin when they lose. That's really annoying. Like I feel like he's one of those guys that's really good floor raiser for your regular season, but like for a reason in the playoffs, like it's kind of like Don Granado a little bit, but I mean,
just about to say
obviously more accomplished.
But
to me, like, I don't think they're going to fire Dorsey because it's been 1 year, but, I mean, Leslie Frazier's contract's up. I know he's well-respected. I like Leslie Frazier. I think he's a good defensive coordinator.
He's just got to open his horizons a little bit. He likes running nickel zone all the time.
But I think it is time for, like, some fresh blood to take over. I think he should probably not be put back. And I would say, like, Eric Washington, the D-line coach, I think he needs to be fired because, like,
we had no pressure.
I'm sorry. But I saw the stat where, like, the last 2 months or whatever, the Bills' highest pass rush run rate was Gregory Rousseau and he was tied for 43rd. Like, there was 42 better pass rushers than the Bills' top pass rusher when Vaughn was injured. It's not good enough for the amount of talent that's on that roster, the amount of talent that's been put in. Like, Oliver's the first-round pick, Rousseau's the first-round pick. You spent your first pick of the 2020 draft on Evanessa. Basham's a second-round pick. Like, obviously other people make a lot of money too. Like, at the end of the day, like I think his head needs to come off as well. So, like to me, like it's gonna be defensive changes.
Yeah, and I think that's where McDermott's head will go first, being a defensive-minded coach. So,
gotta get some fresh blood defensively and invest offensively, and then I don't know. Yeah. I feel like that's how you retool on the fly.
Right. I mean, you gotta keep the defense doing what they were doing earlier this season. They didn't get 1 ounce of pressure on Joe Burrow, except when Boogie Basham slid into his ankle on the snow. I mean, that's truthfully, that's it. Like that's the only thing that comes to mind. So, yeah, definitely would agree with that. I think Frazier, if anyone goes, he's gone, and their line coach for sure. But I think you give Dorsey another year to kind of set into his role a little bit, And hopefully, you know what? Maybe we're right. Maybe Josh can't throw those quick slants anymore because of his elbow, and maybe he gets it fixed. And here we go. Josh is throwing over the middle real nice. You know what I mean? We're not throwing 3rd and 4s. We're going downfield 50 yards anymore. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It shall be interesting. Yeah.
We'll see.
But
I feel like a lot went wrong this year, but they end up going 14-4. But
that's what I'm saying. It's
I mean,
like,
at the end of the day, though, they didn't get. I mean, like. As much as it's hard, like I was never a big phrase Super Bowl or bust guy, but it kind of felt like this was it.
Mhm.
like this had to be kind of the year, or they were gonna have to take some slight step back next year just because the cap and all that, and they just couldn't get the job done.
Right. I mean, one step forward, two steps back, so you never know what's going to happen. Hey, one step backward could actually be two steps forward, though.
Well,
So,
I just
you
know
know,
in about 4 months when they make a night, then they have a solid, looks like a solid draft, make some nice signings. I'm going to be all about 'em. I mean,
yeah, we'll do another
life
live
of being a
draft
Bills
episode.
fan.
Yeah, yeah, it shall be interesting. At least we have the Sabres and the Bandits to root for
Who would have
still.
thought? Who would have thought that phrase would be said?
What?
We have the Sabres.
Right? Could still be a wild card team, could. Keyword there. We're not positive, but we'll anything else you guys want to chat about, or is that it for our emergency press conference?
No, I'm sure Thursday we might have some
More info.
more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, without further ado, that's going to do it for this episode of the Buffalonian Podcast, Betting on the Bills. The last one of the 2022-23 NFL season. Going out on a sour note, but, we'll go out and hope for the best for next year. We'll catch you on the regular Buffalonian Podcast. And we got some exciting things coming for you this offseason, so can't wait to announce all that. And Dom, I wanna end it like this because we always do, but how do you always end these, buddy?
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.